a shlok which is very good for whenever we are studying together. The gist of the shloka is that we are together to participate in knowledge and in good feelings about each other and with due respect to each other. So that's what I'll chant. Om Sahana Vavatu Sano Bhunaktu Saviryam Karvavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome all. We are joining for the first time in this satsang called Ramana Satsang Nepal 1. So we are going to talk about Ramana Maharshi's teachings and Ramana Maharshi's life. Ramana Maharshi, as some of you may know, was no ordinary sage. He is considered to be an avatar of the younger form of Shiva. Shiva's old main form is known as Shiva, and the younger form of Shiva, when Shiva was depicted as 16-year-old, is known as Dakshinamurti. So Ramana Maharshi is considered to be an avatar of Dakshinamurti. Why is he considered an avatar of Dakshinamurti? Because Dakshinamurti gave the knowledge of the ultimate reality. When he was 16 years old, Dakshinamurti, Shiva, at the age of 16, was known as Dakshinamurti, and he gave them the sermon on silence, which is the ultimate knowledge to be had. So here is a small story I want to tell you about the prowess and the exalted state of Shiva in the younger form. They were known as Sarat brothers. They had attained all the knowledge that the books can give you. So your entire Vedantic knowledge was with them. But they had one minor problem in their heads. Mind is the problem. But in their mind, they thought that this kind of knowledge that they have attained now, where there's no other knowledge that could be attained by human beings, they thought that this will give them more power. And they couldn't find the answer as to what comes next after having attained all the knowledge. These four brothers, Sarat Kumar brothers, started walking towards the north, thinking that they will someday, because the gods reside in the north, they thought they will come across some god and they will be able to ask them, what comes next? We've got all the knowledge, but we don't know what is supposed to be the next step. So they're walking and they keep walking for thousands of years. One eon is 100,000 years. So they're walking for eons of years, and they reach the heights where no other human beings could have reached without this kind of knowledge. And suddenly they find a young lad sitting under a banyan tree, meditating deeply in samadhi. So their first reaction is that, look, because they are walking towards the north and he's facing them, so they were ritualistic because they had learned everything, all the pujas and everything. So their first reaction was, look at the fool. He's facing the south and meditating. He doesn't even know how to meditate. That's what karma kand does to us. So I'm making the basis for these teachings. Karma kanda, ritual practice, cannot give you the ultimate knowledge. So their first thought is, what is he doing facing the south? We have to tell him, we have to teach him how to meditate. But then their very second thought was that if we are the only four human beings who could come up to these heights because of the knowledge we have got, who is he who has got here before us? Where is he from? Where did he get the knowledge? We are the only four. So they walk up to him and they say, how did you get here before us? Who are you? But he's immersed in samadhi. He doesn't answer. So after some pleadings, they also sit down in front of him and they start meditating. They knew how to meditate. So when they kept meditating and they reached that quietness in their mind and questions dissolved, then Dakshinamurti opens his eyes and gives them a sermon on silence and tells them that the knowledge cannot be gained by reading or by reciting the scriptures. You can learn all the Vedanta, you can learn all Christianity, all Zoroastrianism, or whatever religion you believe in. That read knowledge or enunciated practice knowledge will not give you the ultimate reality, which we call moksha or nirvana. That will only come from your heart. The heart which is on your right side. Advaita Vedanta means non-dual Vedanta. Why non-dual? Because the ultimate reality, which we call moksha or nirvana or hridaya or swa or self or whatever name you want to call it by, right? That cannot be two. That cannot be two, because if there are two at that stage, then that will not be nirvana. It means you are dualistic still. The ultimate reality is only one. If we merge back into that reality, we'll become part of that one. It can take the entire universe. So this is what happened when these four Sanat Kumar brothers found out that the ultimate knowledge resides in silence. Who gave it to them? Dakshinamurti. Who was Dakshinamurti? The younger form of Shiva. Ramana Maharshi, who also was 16 years old, living in his uncle's house in Madurai, which is in southern India in Tamil Nadu, he had this experience of death. How are we drawn towards certain things? Why are we, some of us, trying to understand what Advaita Vedanta is? Because the seed has already been planted in our previous lives. That's why we are spending time on these kinds of things. So Ramana Maharshi, when he was 16 years old, he was living at his uncle's house. His father had already died when he was 12 years old. His older brother and himself, Ramana Maharshi was the second son, they had moved to their uncle's house. He was studying in the upstairs, the room, and he had this sudden fear of death. He felt as if he was about to die. It was a real fear that, oh, I'm going to die. So much so that in his own words, I'm quoting Ramana Maharshi, in his own words, he said he laid down in the room as if rigor mortis had set in. What is rigor mortis? When the body becomes stiff when we die. So he laid there thinking he's dead. He's going to be dead. And that the death has come. There's no other thing to happen. He's going to die right now. He's dying. That was his fear. So when he's lying down with the feeling of rigor mortis, stiff body, at that time, he could feel that his body is being carried to the cremation ground. At that moment, when he was visualizing all this or feeling all this, the reality or the jnana came to him that if I can see all this after my death, then I cannot be the body. I am not this body. This body is the dwelling in which I reside. Otherwise, how can I see that my body is being taken to the cremation ground? How can I visualize all this? So that was his moment of jnana that he got. He was 16 years and 7.5 months old. This happened in the month of beginning of middle of July. Exactly around this time, middle of July, this happened. And then he leaves his house because he had this strong feeling of Arunachala. Why did he have this strong urge of meeting or knowing Arunachala? Some family friend or somebody was visiting them at their house in Madurai, or they were talking about, and he asked as a young boy, or he was in 10th grade, and he asked this guest, where have you come from, uncle? And the uncle said, I've come from Arunachala, beta. He says, Arunachala? Oh, is there a place like that? Oh, it exists. It is a real thing, real place. And the uncle said, come on, young boy, you don't know Arunachala in Tiruvannamalai. You should know that. Arunachala in Tiruvannamalai. So he had heard this Arunachala in Tiruvannamalai. Why was he so impressed by the name of Arunachala? Because he had read a book called 63 Shaivites. There were 63 southern India. In southern India, there are Shaivite saints which are worshipped. 63 are the most popular. And there's a small book called 63 Shaivite Saints. He had read that book. In that book, there is a reference to Arunachala many times. And whenever he read that, there was some connection of him with that Arunachala. So when this guest tells him he has come from Arunachala, that in Bhagavan's words, as if a current, something happened to me. Arunachala, oh, it exists. So the death experience, and 6 weeks after death experience, he suddenly leaves home to come to Arunachala with only money enough to buy the rail ticket. He had checked the fare. He only took that much train money and left. And came to Arunachala on 1st September, which will be celebrated. And we should probably have a meeting around that time to really know the importance of that journey. So he comes to Arunachala, that is in Tiruvannamalai, even today, on 1st September 1896, when he was 16 years and 9 months old. In December, he was born in December 1879. So he comes, and till his last breath, he just stays in Arunachala. And after coming at the age of 16, he remains silent for 12 years. Not that he wanted to maintain silence. Later on, people asked him, why did you maintain mauna? He said, I did not maintain any mauna. I did not know what mauna is. I just didn't feel the need to talk. That was his stature. That was his paripakwata. If I use a Sanskrit word, his ripeness was so heightened that he had this death experience, leaves the world, leaves the 10th grade. He never finishes 10th grade, comes to Tiruvannamalai, and lives here forever on the mountain. Slowly and slowly, then he gets up to the mountain. So Ramana Maharshi is considered to be an avatar of Shiva. Avatar of the younger form of Shiva or of Shiva. Now, why is Shiva so important? Since all of us have some background in our religions, you all know that the 3 great gods in Hinduism are Vishnu, Brahma, Vishnu, you all know. So only Shiva gives you the ultimate passage. Shiva alone gives you the path to moksha. He comes and he goes to the main. There's a big Arunachaleshwara temple in Tiruvannamalai, which is now about, I think it's about 1,300 years old. It's a big, big temple with ponds inside and all that. So he comes, and initially nobody knows him. He's known as Brahmana Swami. People thought that he looked like a Brahmin boy. Otherwise, he wouldn't be here. And he looked like a Brahmin boy anyway. So they started calling him Brahmana Swami. And nobody knows where is he from, where has he come from. But he looked like either a crazy madman or a realized soul, because he didn't care about his body. His hair was growing larger. His nails were growing larger. He was not looking after his body. Sometimes he was not even wearing his kopina. He had no attachment to the reality of the world. That's the stage he was at. I have to tell you a small little life story here again. When he arrives on 1st September, he arrives in late morning. After the train arrives, he comes from the train station, must have walked down, and he comes and goes into the sanctum sanctorum. And in his words, he hugged the Shivalinga in Arunachaleshwara temple. Now, at that time, when he arrived, usually the temple doors are closed because the morning prayers are done. As you know, South is very ritualistic, especially Tiruvannamalai is a very ritualistic place. But that day, all the doors were open and the sanctum sanctorum was open, where even a Brahmin who is a Brahmin is not allowed to go in unless he has gone through 12 years of Vedantic chanting practice. Only a Brahmin priest can go in. But that day it was open. Anyway, not to elaborate on that anymore, he comes out of that. And here is his culmination of his realization that I have nothing. He was totally detached. Here's the proof. He comes and there is a pond inside the temple. As I told you, this is a humongous temple. There's a pond inside the temple. He goes to that pond. And before taking the dip, he takes out all his clothes, becomes naked, and tears one cloth and makes a loin cloth out of that. Then takes a dip in the pond and comes out. Because this is a ritualistic thing that when you take sannyas, you get your head shaved, and then you wear a kopina, then you take a dip and you come out. And then you do what is called Viraha Homa, which goes on for hours and hours. So here, when he did this, he came, he tore a piece of cloth, then he took a dip and came out. Somebody is watching him and realized that this kid is very unusual. Just a boy doing all this. But look, he didn't cut his hair. He didn't shave his hair. So somebody volunteers, and a nai, a barber, gives him a free shave, though he had already taken the dip. So the process was a little reversed. You're supposed to shave your head, then take the dip. But here the dip was taken, the head wasn't shaved. So as he's going, and he says, Bhagavan said, then I walked back into the sanctum sanctorum. And as he was walking back, in that time, suddenly there was a sharp shower. So as if the gods bathed him. After he had done this, there was a shower, and he had ritualistically, he was given bath. Now he starts living here, and nobody knows him. And I don't want to continue with the story. I want to come into his teachings, and then we'll come back to other parts of his story. They are beautiful milestones of his story, and it's a totally unusual story of a saint who left his body in 1950 and who lived amongst us. No doubt none of us were born or there, because we are all born after 1950, including this oldest man here. So he, what was I saying? I was saying that his teaching. So this is how he began his journey, and then starts moving away from the temple, up on the mountain, because he didn't want any disturbance. And boys of the town used to disturb him all the time by pelting stones at him or throwing dust at him. And they're very, very beautiful milestones in this story also. But I'm going to move towards his teachings. What did Ramana teach? Why is he so popular? Why is he translated in so many languages? In Chinese, in Japanese, in Korean, in Russian, in Spanish, in obviously in all the Indian languages. We have now 22, but I'm sure at least at one time when I used to track this, he was already translated in 16 languages, which used to be what our initial constitutional languages were. So he's been translated in so many languages. People till date throng to his ashram in Tiruvannamalai from all over the world. There are many, many beautiful details that we need to know about his life, which I have not covered. Actually, I've rushed through his life. And we will, when we meet again, we'll pick it up from here. Okay. Arunachala.
Jai Arunachala.
Arunachala.
Jai Arunachala.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all of you. Thank you. Thank you.